शुरू हो जाने दो, please. Wait a minute, sir. Now
Sure.
recording has started. Now you can speak, please. Please.
Namaskar to everybody. Wishing everyone good evening. Our life is so full of conflicts. That is an undeniable fact. The rich and the poor, those in the West and in the East, the educated and the illiterate, and so on and so forth. It is not true to say that, oh, how peaceful life in villages is. No, it's not at all peaceful. Villages have their own politics, their own very sad dividing lines. In villages, sometimes there is so much of division based on caste and gender and this and that. City life, in that sense, is better. But in city life, too, you and I have so much of conflicts and different kinds of problems. This evening, we are here not to discuss conflicts which have much to do with standard of living, much to do with physical discomfort, etc. We are concerned with conflicts of the nature of right and wrong, of the nature of how we desire to be loved, but we do not receive love, or we desire to be respected and we do not receive the expected regard and respect, or how we want to be Mr. Right or Miss Right always, but our own conscience says, you did something wrong. Fellow, correct yourself. So we are torn apart between right and wrong, good and bad, and in a single expression, we are torn apart by judgments of two kinds in our own mind. And we talk about being non-judgmental, but that seems to be next to impossible. When in the topic that we have announced for this session, contours of conflict, we have this word contours. I should say something to clarify on that word. If you look at a dictionary, contours broadly have two meanings. One is if you are a civil engineer or a surveyor of land, there they have contours. Points at the same height are joined together, and that is a contour. We are not talking about contours in a survey map of some piece of land. We are here to talk about something else where the second meaning would be more relevant. The second meaning in dictionaries is an outline of any object. That's good enough for us to apply it to conflict. What are the outlines of the conflicts that you and I go through? In other words, if we take a look at our conflicts, we would know how conflicts arise, what is involved in a conflict. So first let us dwell on these contours of conflict a little bit. I would imagine that our conflicts necessarily have this fight between what I want to be and what my mind says I am. The inner conflict is necessarily between two images. There is one image built of thoughts, built of memories, and that image presents me in a certain way. Then there is another image built of my conditionings, put together by certain values that got into me with or without proper scrutiny. As the colloquial expression goes, I buy into certain values. From early childhood, we begin to look at somebody as a role model. Sometimes our parents also encourage us. If I put a picture of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose in the room where I am given a table and chair to study as a primary school or elementary school student, my parents proudly would say to guests and visitors, relatives, you see, our second son is very fond of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Who knows, he also may emerge as a great leader one day. I get influenced. I enjoy what appears to be a compliment, though I don't know at that time much about Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. I don't know much about Gandhi. I don't know much about any other person for that matter. Some sportsman, some cinema star, some Olympic gold medalist, whoever. But the human mind at a very young age tends to buy into certain values, certain pictures, certain images, and without our knowing what is happening within us, there is a picture of how I should be. But life has its own rules, its own laws, its own path, its own ways. Life takes us in some direction or the other. And one day I see what I wanted to become and what I have become are at much variance. They are not the same. Where I wanted to go and where I have landed, oh, there is a conflict. Or why talk about all these big images? When I have a misunderstanding with somebody, when my relation with somebody gets strained, then also I have a conflict because I wanted that person, maybe my uncle, to praise me, to accept me as I am. That uncle dear, either right in front of me or behind me, criticized me, said that nowadays I pity this nephew of mine. When I hear that or I come to know that somebody reports to me that your uncle talked like this about me, then I say, did you hear with your own ears? Really? You see the same issue here. I have an image of my being admired, loved, praised, accepted fully by my uncle. And now I get news. I get a report that my uncle doesn't hold me in much regard. My uncle, in fact, is full of sympathy. My uncle fervently hopes that I rise, I come up, which means right now I am such a fallen fellow. Alas, now comes the important part. The second part of our topic this evening is, can passive awareness help? Now, passive awareness, choiceless awareness, attention, watching our thought, etc., these are not understood or appreciated by a large number of people. Even you and I, who discuss these things periodically, cannot really claim to have truly appreciated it or understood it. As you know, in Upanishads it is said, he who says he has understood has not understood. And he who doesn't say he has understood, perhaps has understood. Yasya matam tasya amatam Matam yasya na vedasaha avijnatam vijanatam vijnatam avijanatam. If somebody has interest, go to Keno Upanishad. There's a very puzzling statement there. Those who know don't talk about it, and those who talk about it do not know it. So people like Swami Chidananda, who again and again talks about these things on Thursday get-togethers of Indore J. Krishnamurti group, take it for sure he doesn't know. He talks, he doesn't know. And anybody in this group doesn't talk at all, very silent, only listens, probably knows. The Upanishads are careful, though not explicitly said, it is implied, probably. Otherwise, all people who sit quietly would be taken as illumined. Let's not go into the issue of who is illumined, who is not, why are we concerned? But the issue is, I'm raising this because generally in this world, we buy into a lot of so-called self-improvement techniques. This afternoon, I actually was looking at some little material on yoga. And let me quickly read, taking only a minute. Someone who wrote a piece on yoga said the 10 benefits of yoga. Yoga helps you in all-round fitness. Yoga benefits in weight loss. Yoga is one of the best solutions for stress relief. Yoga helps for inner peace. Yoga improves immunity. Yoga, its practice offers greater awareness. Yoga improves relationships. Yoga increases energy. Yoga gives you better flexibility and posture. Yoga helps in improving intuition. Wow. If you and I read that, which I did now from a Word file that is in my laptop, you and I would say, why go to this passive awareness? Just do yoga and be done with it. Because yoga seems to promise everything. Well, so does our mind imagine that I do this regularly, I will be free from conflict. I consume that, or I repeat this mantra, or I do this some new technique which has just now come from the West or from our own East. We visualize, we fancy that do this and you will be transformed. With all due respect to yoga, and I myself keep resolving again and again, I will be more regular in yoga. We don't deny the benefits of yoga, but to do justice to the science of this whole matter, yoga to a certain extent prepares our body and mind, prepares our body and mind for some very precious, very valuable insights. We do not disagree there. But what can resolve all our conflicts? What can actually put to rest the conflict in our bosom is not any amount of asanas, any amount of pranayamas. No, all of them do a little bit of preparing the ground. No wonder, therefore, Krishnaji asked people, how long do you keep plowing the ground or plowing the ground, however you may pronounce? How long do you keep plowing the ground? When will you sow the seed? He made a distinction between plowing the ground. A farmer plows the ground, and however wonderfully he might have plowed the ground, suppose he forgot to sow the seeds, will any crop come at all? Even that illustration may have some limitations, but illustrations normally are not meant to completely reveal the topic. They only help us see in the right direction. Passive awareness comes where yoga stops. Passive awareness comes where Vedanta scriptural study stops. Passive awareness comes in where the study of Dhammapada, study of all the holy books in this world stop. You read all those works, maybe with wonderful guidance, maybe with lot of explanations, maybe with a lot of sincerity. No books, no scriptures, no words can serve you on a platter conflict resolution. We revere, I for one, do revere the holy books. Though I have not studied Guru Granth Sahib, if you bring a copy of Guru Granth Sahib before me, I would touch that and do Namaste, like a typical Indian, a typical Hindu. But once more, to use the expression, to do justice to this science, the study of the book cannot take you to resolution of your inner turmoil. It can prepare the ground, plow the field. For as long as one doesn't directly see, directly behold, directly gaze at the structure of thought, thought does not get resolved. You and I typically cling, that means hold tightly to a certain identity. Those of us who may talk and write books also are very fond of our identity as a scholar. Just this afternoon, a college in Mumbai asked me to come and speak, and then they said, we are making an announcement. Sir, Swami Chidananda will address the undergraduate students on March 13. What will we write after your name? Swami Chidananda, what? They will ask, who is this? Then I said to the professor, ah, just write Swami Chidananda, speaker, writer, Vedanta scholar. So something like that. And we scholars and writers and speakers get fond of being a writer, a speaker, and a scholar. Aha. That is the breeding ground of conflict. Can we gaze at the identity with which we are attached? Likewise, we cling to memories of how we did some wrong things in life, how we disappointed somebody, how we let down somebody who had done so much for us, but we behaved in a way that proved to be very ungrateful, etc., etc. Every one of us carries some guilt, some shame, some regret, etc., right? The books will say, you can be free of anxiety, you can be free of guilt. And reading those words, we feel good. But just by imagining a state of no guilt, no shame, no pride, no anxiety, etc., will it go? That is where passive awareness comes into the scene. Moment we are active, moment we say, okay, I'm going to resolve this conflict, I'm going to dissolve this image, I'm going to undo this thought, I'm going to drop this sense of doership, I'm going to let go of my sense of shame. Who is this I? Who will do it? I will do it. I am now learned enough. I am now smart enough. I am now mature enough. Da, 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 da. The mind will say, mind will again and again build yet another image. And in low moments, you and I also sigh and say, I cannot do anything. Mom, my life is coming towards its end. I have only talked or read or heard or I don't think I can ever be different. Alas, saying so we create an unhappy image. It is all images. What is passive awareness? Passive awareness, in as much as it is not active, does not get involved, does not try to change a thought, suppress a thought, boost a thought, strengthen a thought, and weaken another thought. This is all activism, inner activism. I'm not talking of social activism. There is social activism also, but this is inner activism. Can you give a break to activism? And can you stay as passive awareness? May be very uncomfortable. One may feel highly out of place. In fact, sometimes when somebody says, all right, I will not try to do anything to thoughts, I will not introduce any thought consciously, I will just watch, I'll just stay aware of whatever is going on. When one tries that, sometimes one feels terribly sad. Tears roll down one's cheeks. Probably because one is so attached to always doing things. One has always been a go-getter. One has succeeded in many ventures, many enterprises, many missions, all through one's life. And here comes this teaching of the passive awareness. One may say, ये क्या है passive awareness? कुछ करने नहीं देता. I am not allowed to do anything. That's another condition. We are so attached to doing, so attached to kartrutva, so attached to doership. That is where the breeding ground for conflict is prepared. Friends, I would say passive awareness doesn't use the word passive in some dark, undesirable, uncomplimentary sense. In fact, to be passive is a greater challenge than to be active. To be active is a challenge. Like water tends to flow from a higher level to a lower one. You and I have a tendency to sit back, relax, go lazy, sleep too much, talk too much, eat too much, or watch television too much, check WhatsApp messages too much. All this is called in Indian philosophy tamas. You are tamasic. That also is on the surface passive. For heaven's sake, we should not misunderstand passive awareness as having anything to do with tamas. Tamas, rajas, and then sattva. Passive awareness is the full blossoming of sattva. When there is tremendous insightfulness, a tremendous intuition. Wait a minute. I've always been tinkering with thoughts. Let me stop tinkering. Let me not do tinkering. Let me not play with this. Like elsewhere, a idiom is used, right? Don't play with fire. It may not be literal, it may be idiom. When you try to do something dangerous, they use the idiom. Please don't play with fire. Likewise, over here, This mind, this flow of thoughts, this network of thought, this web of thinking. I try to do something with it, it gets more messy. It is some sort of daldal. In Hindi, you have the word quicksand. You try to get out of it, you sink deeper. What to do? Thank God. The good news is this passive awareness, rather than not taking us anywhere, actually can be the way out, can be the answer. Lastly, in a related fashion, I would like to submit. Nowadays, a whole lot of medical doctors agree that the human body has a tremendous amount of its own intelligence to cure any disease, put an end to any ailment, provided you let the body work. You let the body operate its intelligence. So, is passive awareness in a way related to not just let the body do what it likes, but also mind to settle down on its own. Probably more we tinker our mind, more we try to pull something here, push something there, more we try to manage. I will manage this mind. And in the world, self-management, mind management. Management is a buzzword. You want to run a Sunday workshop, invite people, put 500 rupees as charges. And the topic is mature mind management. Use the word management, large number of people will come. If you say this Sunday we have a program, it is about passively watching your thoughts. Beware, very few will come. They will say, if we have to passively watch our thoughts, we will do it at home with a cup of coffee in hand. Why should we travel and come to your workshop? That's because there is such sheer misunderstanding of what in Indian philosophy is called Sakshi Bhava. Sakshi means witness. You are the witness of thoughts. Stay as the witness. Though we use that expression, stay as the witness, in no way we mean that it is an exercise of will. Normally, these in grammar they call them imperative sentences. Eat that fruit. Don't eat these dry fruits. So do eat, don't eat, do go, don't go. These are, everyone knows basic English grammar. They are a kind of sentences called imperative sentences. So when we say stay passive, generally imperative statements involve the use of willpower. A child is about to eat something and the elderly parents, adults caution him, don't eat that. It's old, there may be bacteria in it, don't eat. The child is so tempted to eat, but the child has gained some maturity, a little grown up. The child looks at the parents and says, okay, somewhat unwillingly, the child does not touch the eatable. There is exercise of will. Okay, I won't eat because my father says don't eat. Here it is not about being obedient to X or Y. Probably that is where Krishnaji also comes down heavily against authority. Here it is not about bowing down before an authority and therefore staying passive. Please note, passive awareness is not an operation of will. Passive awareness is an operation, if we may call it an operation, it's an operation of intelligence. There is a certain understanding, there is a certain intuition that doing anything will right away amount to taking sides, taking this as right, that as wrong, this as good, that as bad, and at the most, it will take us from one image to another image. Whereas we are wondering, can we be free of any self-image? I'm tired of a bad label I have put on myself, but I don't want to put a label on myself saying I'm a good guy. Can I be free of all labels? These are the questions which gain certain meaning, which rise in their importance or relevance. Then passive awareness happens. You don't say, I'm going to do passive awareness every morning, 7 to 7:30, etc. That is ridiculous. Passive awareness just happens when you see the limitation of thought, limitation of doing something, limitation of managing emotions according to some technique, etc. So let me close this short talk saying, really speaking, at the height of the whole matter, passive awareness alone can resolve the self in us, and the absence of self alone can deal a blow to all conflicts. Conflicts go when the entity that has conflicts vanishes. This may be said. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving so wonderful talk. May I request Harshad sir? Harshad sir, please come forward and say something.
Okay. Yeah. Are you able to hear?
Yeah, very well.
Okay. Thank you, Swamiji. You have really explained everything very well. Conflict, as you said, exists in all human beings, not only in human beings, but also in animals, because I have seen dogs fighting with each other about the territory, and the monkeys are also fighting for some female monkey. So we come, if we believe that we come from the animal world, human beings also have lots of conflicts, and this conflicts adds as we grow up. And the reason for this conflict is a duality. There has been fighting between dharma and adharma, like Ram and Ravan, Kaurava and Pandava, and so on. History, we see there has been fights, and the wars are still going on at international level. And then there are conflicts within the country, within the city, within the family, and within a human being also. So the real cause of conflict is duality, the duality between what I would say, or what Krishnamurti would say, between thinker and thought. Like in Krishnamurti's words, thought creates the thinker. That thinker means I, me, self, ego. When this ego comes through thinking, and then it tries to change thought by saying that I like it, I don't like it. So it is between what is and what should be, or between this observer, which we call thinker or me, and what is observed, which is a thinking. So this duality exists in human beings much more than in animals, because in animals they don't have thinking, so their life is relatively easy compared to human beings. And the human beings, the more they know, more they have acquired knowledge, the more conflict could be there. If there is only a person has gathered the knowledge from reading books, but when a person becomes very curious to look inward and forgetting everything what one has learned from scriptures, then there is a direct contact with our own mind. And sometimes it may help in the beginning to sit quietly in a very peaceful place and maybe closing eyes and turning the attention inward, because generally our attention is always turned outward. Our senses are also can hear from sounds which are outside. Our eyes look at the objects which are outside. And so through senses, we gather a lot of knowledge, ideas. But when we turn the attention inward and begin to see the movement of our own thought, not through thinking, because if we can observe the thinking through thinking, then it is will also create a conflict between the thinker and the thought, because this thinker is a very strong, powerful component of thinking, which is always trying to change. So only when, as Swamiji said, only when this thinker goes away, the self, then there is this what is called witness or choiceless awareness, which comes into existence, which can see how the thoughts are moving without trying to change it. And in that, it is can be called as moving with what is, in which there is no what should be. So in that state of moving with what is, there is no conflict. Only when the thinker, the self, the ego, the me wants to change what is to what should be, then there is a conflict, there is a duality, and there is a conflict, and there is a waste of energy. So is it possible to come upon such a state in which this thinker, the observer, the self, the me doesn't exist? Maybe it can happen when a person is naturally curious to go right to the source of thinking. And after reading Krishnamurti, when I try to observe the beginning of a thought, my mind stopped. And then it was something very different state in which there is only looking at what is, and there is no observer. So when such a thing happens, and if that does not create fear, because in many people, they have said that when this mind, this witness, the thinker stops, there is a feeling of uncomfortable, like silence is very disturbing to most human beings. And so when such a silence creates a restlessness, then one will escape from looking inward and then we involve ourselves in outward activity, and so we escape from our own self. And as long as we escape from looking inward and trying to gather a lot of knowledge, then that knowledge will become a burden. As Krishna ji also has said, that knowledge of what we have gathered from spiritual teachers, even Krishnamurti, that knowledge will block looking inward exactly whatever is going on. So people who are curious and they are not afraid, not escaping from their own self, not trying to change what they see, not having fear of silence, then, and if it really one feels kind of a relaxed silence, a healing silence, then naturally a person will like to do it more often, to just be quiet, forget everything what Krishnamurti has said, and just looking inward. And then um, that can change our way of looking even at the things outside. Then we can see the tree as it is and not from the knowledge which we have gathered about the trees. And the same way, we can look at people, human beings, as if we are looking for the first time. So there is a kind of newness, a freshness comes when this awareness, passive awareness, is really working in our life. And it doesn't mean that we have forgotten the knowledge which we have gathered. The knowledge may still be there. I can look at a tree, but without naming it. But if somebody asks which tree it is, then I can answer that it is a mango tree or a neem tree. So knowledge will be stored, no doubt. But that knowledge, when it interferes in looking, then our looking becomes very stale, and we really don't feel the freshness, newness. So I feel that Krishnamurti ji was living with this kind of newness. And even when he was giving a public talks, he had nothing in his mind, but the words were coming spontaneously, effortlessly, with clarity, with silence. So such a thing is possible for us too, only if we are really interested and we feel that this is the most important thing, then becoming somebody important in society or getting more money, more power, more fame, when such thing is not very important and we can really touch the treasure which is buried within us without, means by looking inward without fear, then we can say that what Krishna ji says is true. It is obvious, we would say, and we will not need to read Krishnamurti again and again, and not we will not need to quote him also, but we can speak from our own insight. So this passive awareness, which is the topic, it can really help in solving the conflicts which we have within ourselves. And when we have conflicts within ourselves, it expresses itself in relationship with family, with society, and so on. But sometimes people who are really free, they may also have conflict with society, like Kabir or Mirabai. They were not accepting what society was saying. And so they had a kind of a conflict, but they were not afraid. It was not a problem. They were very, very clear, and they could be very creative in their life, and the poems which they wrote, they express their inner treasure, and so we still remember them after 500 years. And they had conflict with society, but it was the conflict of a free human being with social morality. So, okay, I have said enough things. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Harshad sir. Hareshwar Singh, you wanted to say something? Hareshwar Singh. Please unmute. Please unmute.
Okay, namaste. No, I was hung on one point. What Dr. Parekh said, conflicts are there. They are there, or maybe in animals also. I just, I was reminded of simple rustic people, shepherds, herders in villages, who we call charvaha, garedia. From morning till evening, they graze the herd, the cow, the sheep, whatever it is, and not without any cell phone or Android phone, and without any newspaper, and they are not bored. They are simple people, but the more evolved the mind is, by evolved I mean more intellectually intelligent, so-called intelligent, the more chances are there of getting bored. Swamiji rightly said, all these questions are also a kind of conflicts. I'm this, I could not be that, and the distance between the two. But the Shastras or even Krishnaji has said the desire for knowing the truth, knowing truth. So mumuksha or whatever, I think it's a healthy sign of a sadhak's mind, if I can, within quotes, I can say religious mind, or what Krishnaji said, if you are serious. So it's a healthy sign of a serious mind to have this conflict. What is truth? Am I going to survive after death, or this life is the only thing? So it is very, if I can use the Sanskrit word shubh, to be confronted by these questions. But then sooner or later, as we tread along, we listen to people, we read books, we find that we cannot actively search truth in a time-bound program and arrive at it one fine day. Certainly not. Thank you.
Anybody other than Hareshwarji wanted to comment? Please come forward. Or I will request Chidanandji. Chidanandji, would you please say something?
Yeah, Hareshwar ji actually wrote something on the chat box also, and later he spoke, expressing more or less the same thought, that more we evolve, we become more sieged with conflicts, with its positive and negative sides. I agree with him. Sometimes when we, so to say, evolve, whatever that word evolution may mean, one thing is true. Certain subtle things also start hurting us. Evolution makes us perceive life much more than before, but there is a price to pay. As we perceive life not only on the grosser side of food, shelter, position, clothes, as they say, roti, kapda, makan, and so on, but we also become very sensitive to subtler things. In a get together, somebody smiles at us in a very a thin smile, not much. We are able to notice it. Like we sometimes say, we nowadays can read between the lines. That's good. But as that sensitivity increases, it doesn't guarantee that our love of our own image reduces. We become sometimes more hungry, more thirsty for appreciation, recognition, approval. People should agree with what we have said or are saying. Those also get accentuated. So I see much meaning in whatever he has said, Hareshwar. However, the good news that also he wrote, that very evolution, that very ability to see many things in this thing called life, opens the doors to appreciating such marvelous teachings like passive awareness. Someone who is so much caught in just higher standard of living, want to move to a bigger house, want to have a more expensive car and such things, which are very popular examples. And gross things have many other things too. But someone who is caught in those will not be able to understand at all what this observing or watching could be. Therefore, I only would appreciate the input by Hareshwar that growing intellectually has both good and bad sides, but probably that is irreversible. We grow, and sometimes we can run into unforeseen conflicts. Thank you.
Thanks. Is there anybody else wanted to comment on it?
May I make a comment?
Yeah, please welcome.
Yes, I feel that people who are interested in spiritual way of living and those who become sannyasi, they have also a lot of conflict if they are suppressing their sensual desires. And there are many books and films are made, and especially one writer, Herman Hesse, who wrote many books, and in most of his books, this conflict between spiritual and sensual, it was very predominant. And so sometimes I hear that some monks, they also something living in a mutt or in an ashram because maybe they have not really looked clearly at their own mind and they have controlled or suppressed their desires, and then their end of life, they are not in a good state. So to see ourselves as we are is not very easy, and there can be many illusions also involved in that. And so I remember one sannyasi who had meditated for many years in Himalayas for 25 years, and he came to Krishnaji to discuss, and he said that still he had no peace. So this conflict, even among people who are interested in spiritual way of living, in them also conflict is very strong, and it can lead to sometimes madness also. So this is a very dangerous field, spirituality. And even Swami Vivekananda had said that out of 100 people who go into the spiritual path, 80 of them, they failed. Only 20, and out of 20, even 5 really become clear about their own mind. They can see. So there is no suppression no control, no controller, and just to watch everything as it is, good or bad, and not trying to change it, that freedom is very rare, I feel, even among spiritual people. And some of them are interested in name and fame, and they set up big organizations and many disciples, and then sometimes something goes wrong, as it has happened. So uh, what Krishnamurti says, choiceless awareness, is the kind of a freedom, and that freedom is very rare, but it is possible for us if we give our whole energy into looking honestly at ourselves as we are and not trying to control or suppress. Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir. Is there anybody other than Harshad sir wanted to comment? Arun Partha, please come forward.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I was not able to unmute myself. So actually, my question was more like, see, this choiceless awareness itself, no? What basically triggers that? Because when I really hear that when the word awareness, and when I try to be aware of certain things in my own life, I feel I'm not aware, I'm not able to bring in that awareness into every part of my life. But only suddenly, some thought comes like, okay, let's be aware. Then I'm able to be aware of certain of my actions or certain things which go in my head. Okay, so doesn't thought only bring aware this awareness? Is that the trigger, or is awareness itself completely different? Because maybe I'm not able to understand. That's what I have one question. And because if you see, thought is the what I mean, whole of Krishnaji's teaching is about thought creating all the conflicts of anger, greed, and all that. So thought itself, does it say that, okay, enough is enough and I have to bring about a change in my life, and then it starts to be aware? That is my question, sir. Thank you.
Chidanandji, please.
Now I am speaking. Very interesting, the point raised by Arunji. This, first of all, there was a question, does this awareness arise when we wish or we try, we sort of give special attention? It seems like that, but actually pure awareness, choiceless awareness, with no bias, you are seeing things as they are. When we say no bias, it means you see something as it is. Moment bias comes in, already you are labeling that object. Like, a botanist who is so filled with knowledge of flowers and plants, etc. Moment he sees a flower, he may say, this is Hibiscus rosa sinensis. And moment he sees another plant, its botanical name, though nobody is asking him. That's the example given. So once there is a bias, once there is prior knowledge interfering in perception, it is no more choiceless awareness. So when you take awareness or noticing our thoughts to a certain level of being free from all bias, such awareness cannot take place by deciding, by willing, by opting for it. It just happens. Therefore, Krishnamurti made a very clear statement. Truth is like a robber. It tries to enter your house when you don't expect. But the problem is the walls of your house are too thick. He has made a very strange example. Truth is like a robber. You know. So robber doesn't say this afternoon 2 o'clock I will come and burgle or rob your house. He just comes anytime. Like that, this insight, this unbiased seeing, which we may call a flash, that doesn't tell us in advance, or nor can we initiate it. I have some free time in the afternoon, then I say, oh flash, oh insight, please come. I can't invite like that. However, when something is cooking within, something we are very concerned, we are very eager to know the truth, and for that reason, there's a pure passion, then it may happen at its own chosen point. And therefore, that was the first part. In the second part of your question about what was the highlight, yeah, do you remember what the second part of your query was? First part to talked about wanting to
No,
be
I
aware.
asked what triggers, then okay. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I
what,
must have.
correct, what triggers? Yeah, good, that's enough, that's enough. So if it is not effort, if it is not our planning to be aware, if our planning to sit in quiet awareness, if it's not something that happens when we plan, then the valid question, the second question has to be, then how does it happen? I invite, it doesn't come. Then how does it happen? So that is, that's where, pondering, think on these things. Krishnamurti's one book is titled, Think on These Things. But do not imagine that thinking can give you the solution. Thinking can at least, expose certain errors in our outlooks. Then you relax. So if you have, one is thinking, your own thinking, another is if you dialogue with people, like we are doing presently. We talk to each other, and then with certain guidance that is available in these teachings from Krishnamurti or from some master, some mystic, doesn't matter. So somewhere we have understood that dialogue is not just talking to each other. Dialogue, first of all, is not so much talking, it is more to do with listening. Let me say this and more or less close my answer. In some group discussions in Krishnamurti centers, like I was in Rajghat for 10 years, and every Wednesday we would have what is called the Wednesday dialogue in the evening. Very often, some members in the campus or some visitors would say, I don't want to attend this dialogue anywhere anymore. This man talks too much. This woman dominates. I don't want to come anymore. They say later on. Then some of us tell that visitor or tell that member in the campus, you know what? More than what is discussed, if during these dialogues you can develop a certain openness, certain patience, certain ability to listen to even the person who dominates and understand what might be going on in his mind, and leave him alone. Even as somebody seems to be dominating and you get irritated, can you pay attention to that irritation? How come I'm so irritated? How come I'm getting destructive thoughts? How come I feel like taking a pencil and throwing at his face? I'm explaining in this answer, but actually you don't have to verbally have those thoughts. You notice irritation, you notice provocation, you notice discomfort. That noticing could be clearing the way for some valuable insight to arise. That noticing your reaction to something unpleasant could pave the way for choiceless awareness to just come forth. I would say so. Thank you.
Is there anybody other wanted to comment or add something here? Harshad sir.
Okay. I would like to say that generally, when we have many problems and they are bothering us, then we like to turn to spiritual or looking inward. But when we don't have any problem, at that time are we interested in looking? Because as Kabir, the great poet, said, "Dukh mein sumiran sab kare, sukh mein koi nahi. Jo sukh mein sumiran kare, to dukh kahe so hoy." So, is it possible to look whether we have a problem or no problem? Are we really curious? And generally, when we have a problem, then it is much difficult to observe because there is something, this problem making machinery has to be seen clearly from a state which is free. So this choiceless, passive, effortless awareness is a real freedom, and only in such a state we can really see clearly. But when we have a problem and we are trying to solve the problem by thinking or doing something, then we complicate it and we sink deeper in the mud of thinking. So thinking is sinking in the mud, as the Swamiji has also given that kind of analogy. So to see ourselves clearly, it requires the freedom to see. And that freedom, it may come if it comes at all. Otherwise, one can just go on thinking, talking, having dialogues, reading books, gathering knowledge. But that may not help. Only when we forget the whole thing and we say, I really want to see myself as I am, not because I want to solve a problem, but because I'm very curious, just like scientists. But sometimes even scientists have a motive. They want to solve a certain problem. But in this field, spirituality or psychology, something is going on all the time in your mind. And we are not thinking, but thinking is happening. And the question is it possible to look at whatever is happening at any moment, whether we are traveling in the train or walking on the street or in the park? Is it possible to watch? And initially, we have to be quiet and alone and turn the attention inward. But when we are able to do it well and it is really helping, then there may come an effortless, choiceless, passive awareness may become like our nature. Same way, just like musicians, initially they have to make a lot of effort to learn music, but after they become master in music, creative compositions may come just in a good state of doing nothing. So creativity comes when the mind is silent, when everything is seen exactly as it is without trying to change it. And sometimes Krishnaji says something against tradition, but I remember like Nachiketa, and Krishnaji also used to give this example of Nachiketa, who was very, very curious to know about what happens after we die. And he went to the Yama, and the Yama was giving everything, palace and women and chariots and gold. But Nachiketa said, no, I don't want all that thing. I just want to know what is beyond death. And there have been many great uh, children like Dhruv and Prahlad and Shankaracharya, and they were very young and they were very passionate about uh, knowing their true self, which is nothing but passive awareness. So this true self, which the tradition talks about, in my view, it is nothing but this witness which can look at thinking as it is. So in that looking, there are no problems, and good and bad and everything can flow like the river carries everything. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, sir. Chidanandji, are you here?
I am here. I am here.
You are very good, sir. So would you please say something?
Yes,
Some
I'll
word.
say something and then I may have to leave.
Yeah.
Yes,
yes.
yes. So I always miss one point, and Harshadji always picks that up. That is, in this watching, there has to be freedom in watching. And it's not a matter of holding a view. I will watch and I will come upon freedom through this. That putting of freedom at the end of the journey is not acceptable in this higher understanding. That idea that I will do this and arrive at freedom, that idea itself is contrary to the true meaning of freedom. For as Krishnaji, that is J. Krishnamurti, often remarked, this inner, call it transformation or radical change, it's not a phenomenon on the axis of time. A bud blossom, a bud blossoming is a phenomenon on the axis of time. You and I, when we are 10 or 12, we men don't have mustache and beard. On the axis of time, when we become 15, 16, mustache, beard, etc. come. And again, last, at another age, our mustache and beard become gray. These are processes or phenomena on the axis of time. You and I need to ask the question, is coming upon freedom something that happens on the axis of time? Really speaking, this has nothing to do with time. This is such insight, such seeing, and in that pure seeing, since it is not an action, it's not a process, there are no parts, there are no, I'm using the word parts because a machine with parts starts moving, then one part goes down, another part comes up, etc. So whether it's a mechanical engine or even in electronics, any change will involve some parts, big or small, changing places. But if you think of it, the awareness is without parts, partless, homogeneous, and you can't locate it anywhere. This is where awareness is. So in such ways of thinking, we can appreciate how awareness, is right away with freedom. Freedom also, we are using the word freedom not in some specific sense, financial freedom or political freedom. Those are different things. This is a freedom of inquiry, freedom of seeing. Therefore, I would end my words saying that part, that dimension, freedom at the very beginning, that's where inquiry, true inquiry can happen, is something very fascinating, that aspect of this whole matter. Thank you.
Jensa, please unmute yourself. Jensa, please unmute yourself.
If there is someone to comment on this, or I must close it. If nobody raises hand, I will close it. Modak sir, now you can close.
Okay.
Thank you. We will meet on 16th only. We will not meeting on 9th. Okay.
Okay. Thursday. Thursday, no?
Yeah, Thursday.
Okay.
Sunday we will be meeting at 11 o'clock.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Modak.